Hello, and welcome to Toya in Stitches. I'm Toya. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make the beautiful XOXO cowl. This color here is called Mermaid. And to make this guy, you're going to need some DK weight yarn. I used Lion Brand Mandala. This color here is called Genie. It's going to be really nice. And to make the cowl, you need about 275 yards of DK weight yarn. So this cake here will give you 2 cowls and it'll leave a bit of scraps. You're also going to need a 5.5 millimeter hook, or the hook size you need to achieve the gauge. You're going to need some scissors, a stitch marker, very important, and a tapestry needle. So go grab your supplies and let's get started. When I'm working with a color changing cake like this, I like to take it apart, and it usually comes apart pretty easily. You just kind of find where it starts to change color, and you can usually just slowly pull that section of color right out. Just like so. Now just grab my scissors, separate that. So this one is just like all the green. I got all the white, and then I'll just separate like the gray and that sort of thing. But you don't have to do that. If you want, you can just kind of use the cake as it is and let it do what it does and change as it goes. But what I also will do is I'll also just use a ball winder and ball these up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll get started. So I've separated the colors of my cake and just kind of decided what colors I wanted to use for the cowl. So I've picked out the green and a little bit of gray. I'm just going to work those together. So to start your cowl, we start off with a chain of 114. So I'm going to start by making a slip knot. And I'm going to chain 114. So I have my 114 chains. So now we're going to start row 1. So we're going to skip the first chain and single crochet in the second chain from the hook. I like to work into the bottom bump, so I'm going to flip my chain over, skip that first chain, and work into the second chain. And then single crochet in the next chain, and each chain all the way across. So you should end with 113 single crochet. So I finished working my row 1. So I've now worked my 113 single crochet. Before we start row 2, we're gonna need to find stitch number 56. So I'm gonna take my hook out and I'm gonna count across my row and find number 56. 1, 2, 3. And once we've located stitch number 56, we're gonna get our stitch marker and we're gonna put it in that stitch right there, because we're gonna need that. All right, so now I'm at the end of my row. I am actually gonna change to my other color. So I'm gonna back out of this last stitch here. And then I'm gonna insert into that last chain, pull up that loop, and then with the final 2 loops on my hook, I am going to grab my second color and then yarn over, finish that stitch, tighten these guys up. Then I'm now going to chain 1 and we turn, and now we're going to start row 2. So in your first stitch, you're going to work a double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. All right, so now we're going to start working the back cross double crochets. So we are going to skip the next stitch and work a double crochet in the following stitch. So we're going to yarn over, skip the next stitch, double crochet in the following stitch. And now we're going to work a double crochet into the stitch that we skipped. So we're going to yarn over, maneuver a hook behind the stitch we just worked, and then into the stitch that we skipped. Yarn over and pull up a loop behind that stitch. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's your first back cross double crochet worked. So now we're going to do that again. We're going to skip the next stitch and double crochet in the following stitch. And now we're going to work into the stitch we just skipped, but remember we're going to go behind the one we just did. So we yarn over, put our hook behind the stitch we just worked, then into the stitch that we skipped, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that's our second back cross double crochet. I'll do that with you a couple more times. So skip the next stitch, double crochet in the following stitch. Now we're going to work back into the stitch we just skipped by yarning over, going behind the stitch we just worked, then into the stitch that we skipped, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And I'll do that one more time. Skipping the next stitch, double crochet in the following stitch. Now working into the stitch we just skipped, yarn over, going behind the stitch we just worked and into the stitch that we skipped, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. All right, and now you're going to continue working these back cross double crochets until you get to your stitch marker. So just work the back cross double crochets and then we'll come back when you get to your stitch marker. I'm at my stitch marker now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the stitch marker out, and in that stitch I'm going to work a double crochet. So just insert, work a double crochet, and then you're going to get the stitch marker and replace it in the top of that stitch. And as we work our rows, we're going to continue moving the stitch marker up. It's not necessarily crucial for any other row besides this one, because you just need to remember where to put that just individual double crochet, because that marks the center of the cowl. And I needed that stitch there because one of the following stitches is the double crochet filet, so with the double crochet and the chains, and that one's a multiple of 3 and this one's a multiple of 2. So I had to figure out how to add in that extra stitch just to balance everything out. So you need the stitch marker in this for this stitch as you're working your rows. So don't forget to continue to move it up as you go along. So all you're going to do right now is you're going to go back to working the back cross double crochets until you get to your final stitch. So just continue working, and then when you get to your final stitch, you're going to work another double crochet. So I'll meet you back at the end of the row. I'm at the end of my row 2. I'm just working my very last double crochet, and then we'll move on to our row 3. So we're going to turn our work, then we're going to chain 1, and we're now going to work single crochet stitches all the way across our row. So in the first stitch, we'll work a single crochet, and in each stitch across your row, So continue working single crochet stitches all the way across your row, and then I'll meet you back and we will start row 4. I'm on the last stitch of my row 3, so I'm going to work my final single crochet, and now we're going to turn our work and we are going to start our row 4. So for row 4, we will start off by chaining 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And this chain 4 counts as a double crochet and a chain 1. So now what we're going to do is we're going to skip this first stitch and skip the second stitch, and then we're going to work a double crochet in this third stitch right here. So you're going to chain 4, skip the first stitch and the second stitch, and work a double crochet in the third stitch. So yarn over, insert into the third stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and now you have your first 2 stitches. So you have that chain 3 that counts as a double crochet, a chain 1, and then a double crochet. So now to continue, you're going to chain 1, skip the next stitch, double crochet in the following stitch. And again, chain 1, skip the next stitch, double crochet in the following stitch. One more time, chain 1, skip the next stitch, double crochet in the following stitch. And you're going to continue doing that all the way across your row. So you're going to chain 1, skip 1 stitch, double crochet in the next one. So continue doing that all the way to the end of the row, and then I'll meet you there and we'll work row 5. All right, so I'm coming up to the end of my row 5. I've got a final chain 1 and a double crochet in this last stitch here. And then now we will move on to row 5. So we'll turn our work, chain 1, and then we're going to single crochet in this first stitch. So insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then you're going to work a single crochet around this chain 1. So you're going to insert into the space and work a single crochet around the chain 1. And then you're going to work a single crochet in the top of the next double crochet. And then you're going to work a single crochet around the chain 1. So that's what you're going to continue doing all the way across your row. Single crochet in the top of the double crochet, single crochet around the chain, single crochet in the top of the double crochet, single crochet around the chain. So continue doing that until you get to the end of the row, and then I'll come in because row 5 completes the pattern repeat. So at the end of row 5, I'll come in and tell you how to continue. So continue working your single crochets across the row, and I'll meet you at the end of row 5. All right, so I'm at the end of row 5. I have 2 last single crochet to do. So just so you don't miss any stitches at the end, remember how we started our row 4 with a chain 4. To end row 5, working into your chain there, you're going to work a single crochet into the space around your chain, and then a single crochet in the top of the chain 3. So just going under the 2 loops of the top of that chain 3 and working a single crochet. So you just have to be very mindful whenever you come to the end of the single crochet rows that's going into the double crochet chain 1 rows, just to make sure when you get to the end, you work around into the space and then into the top of the chain 3. Because if you miss one of those, you're going to be short a stitch and it's going to throw everything off. So just remember to do that. And from this point on, you're going to continue working rows 2, 3, 4, and 5 until you get to row 29. So just continue doing that, and then I'll come back in at the end of row 29, and then we'll finish everything off. Okay, so here we are. We're at the end. We finished working all our rows, and now it's time to sew up or sew our ends together and weave in all our ends. So just a couple of tips for you here. So normally when I'm working in color changes, I tend to leave fairly long tails just to sew up each section of color. But if you're working in one color, when you're ready to sew everything together, just make sure the length of yarn you're using to make your seam is about 3 times the length of the area which you're trying to sew up. So if you were going to use one color to sew this entire seam, you would get your yarn and you would lay it across your seam, go 1, 2, 3, and that should give you it'll give you enough to sew up that seam and leave a little extra to weave in at the end there. So another thing I also like to do when I want to ensure all my rows line up properly so that at the end when I'm done, I don't end up with my seam looking like this where the rows are slightly off. What I do is I take blocking pins. So just the little pins that you'd use to block your projects. And I line up my rows. So I start down at the bottom. So there we go. So my very first row, I'll hold it together. And then I will just use that pin and just weave it through to hold it there. All right, and then I'll go a few rows up, get another one, and just make sure the rows are lining up nicely and pin it together. And you also want to make sure you're not catching the row below, just the very one you're working on. So just use that. And you can also use just regular sewing pins. I just find this works better than just regular locking stitch markers because that still allows the fabric to move around. So if you pick it up while you're working your seam, it allows the rows to move. But I find when I use the blocking pins just to hold it together, it holds more firmly so that my rows will all look nice and straight. So no matter how you wear the cowl, if the section with the seam rolls around to the front, you won't be able to tell because everything is lined up nicely. So yeah, so you can go ahead and try that out and see if that works for you. For this seam, I'm just going to be working a whip stitch. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab some needles here. So I'm going to just take a section here where I've got like a nice long tail. And to thread it, I just usually pull it over top of the needle and then just slide it in. Oh, that didn't work. There we go. Yeah, and then for the whip stitch, I just go in through 2 loops on one side. And then I make sure I'm picking up on the same row, which is for right here where I'm starting out. That's a row of single crochet. So I just make sure I'm going into that same row on the other side and just pull it through. Nice and taut, but not tight. You want the seam to move like the rest of the fabric. So just tight enough for it to not separate, but you don't want to pull it so it bunches up. And then I'm just going to continue to do that and work my way down my seam in little sections of color since I did do some color changes. And that way you won't be able to know where it ended. So yeah, I'll just continue doing that. Whip stitching, sewing up my seam, and then I'll weave in all my ends, and then you will be all done and you'll have a cute little cowl. And the thing I love most about this project is it works up quickly, and if you are using a cake yarn, you get 2 out of the 1 cake. So I really hope that you liked this tutorial, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel, and until next time, take care and bye for now.